All right, she lost an election, and now she's projecting. Hillary Clinton went on The View this week, which immediately raises a serious question. What's the weight capacity for that stage? But you'll never guess what she talked about. Her love of gardening, the things she does to stay healthy, how much she adores catching and cooking stray kittens. Nah, it was Donald Trump, as expected. But it's like I always tell Taylor Swift, girl, you gotta move on. Seriously, Trump doesn't just live in Hillary's brain. He's built a 500-unit condo with in-unit laundry and a rooftop lounge.
When Greg Gutfeld takes aim, even Hillary Clinton isn't safe. Because with his razor wit and unapologetic delivery, he cuts straight through the polished layers of political stagecraft, peeling back the smirks and rehearsed lines to expose the reality beneath. And whether it's her infamous email debacle or her foreign policy missteps, nothing escapes his fire as he dismantles her record piece by piece with a grin and a perfectly timed punchline, turning what could have been a standard critique into a comedic demolition capped off with a smirk and a mic drop that leaves the audience stunned.
Registered voters said any Republican would be better than President Biden, prompting one woman to legally change her name to NE Republican. In Washington, D.C., the giant grocery chain has announced a ban on large bags. Great, now where will I shop? Complains one large bag.
If you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell for more. Now imagine this. You roll out of bed, stretch like a champion, grab that overpriced Starbucks latte, and suddenly think, asterisk. You know what the world really needs? More pearls of wisdom from Hillary Clinton. Asterisk, because nothing screams national healing like getting life lessons from someone who spent more time dodging scandals than a raccoon weaving through an alley full of garbage cans.
Hillary Clinton argues Joe should be, quote, direct and forceful, end quote, against Trump in the CNN debate. Yeah, direct and forceful, just like the noose I put around Epstein's neck. If I did it.
And right on cue, Greg Gutfeld swung the wrecking ball. And this wasn't just demolition, it was a full-scale disaster flick unfolding live. Think Category 5 roast. Verbal firestorms raging, spectacle blazing, and the finesse of a wrecking ball tearing through fine china. The audience didn't just watch, they braced. But before the dust settled, the spotlight stayed fixed on Hillary, and Greg was primed to flambe her reputation with razor precision and a flair only he could deliver.
Warning signals that you were gonna lose? Well, too bad you didn't bother to visit the states you ended up losing, you potato-shaped wine bag. But would he even be worse now?
I think that he'd be even worse now because he was somewhat restrained, believe it or not, in the first term by people who he hired because he thought they would go along with him. And
if political comebacks were an Olympic event, Hillary Clinton would be the reigning champion of missed shots. Every few years, like a tired reboot no one asked for, she emerges from the mist, clad in another fresh pantsuit and dripping with that familiar air of self-righteous superiority. It's almost poetic. If poetry were scribbled in Comic Sans and ghostwritten by a team of consultants who couldn't pass an entry-level ethics course.
And, they're going to try to ignore him for as long as they can because they're deathly afraid of him. And they're going to do to him what they did to me in the Democratic primary of 2020, which is pretend you don't exist. And then if people start noticing you, then they will try to smear and cancel and destroy him at all costs.
I remember what Hillary did to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she's still standing.
Baseless smears that repeated over and over and over again by the propaganda media until people actually start to believe it, and it starts causing some real damage.
But let's rewind the tape to those greatest hits. When secret email servers hummed quietly in the basement, Benghazi was brushed off as just another on the map, and delete wasn't a key on the keyboard. It was practically a way of life. After all, nothing builds public trust quite like wiping 30,000 emails with the urgency of a teenager scrambling to clear texts before mom barges into the room.
Hillary, what will happen if Trump is reelected? Which is odd because Hillary's an expert on not getting elected. I wonder, does she think it would end our country as we know it?
I think it would be the end of our country as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. You know, I hated losing, and I especially hated losing to him because I had seen so many warning signals during the campaign.
Greg didn't hesitate for a second. His eyes lit up with that trademark mischief, like a kid dropping Mentos into a bottle of Diet Coke. Except this time, the fizzing explosion was Hillary's legacy. The Mentos? Truth bombs dipped in razor-edged sarcasm. With zero effort and zero mercy, he ripped through decades of meticulously polished Clinton PR, tossing it aside like a crinkled bag of chips, flavored sour cream and electoral delusion.
This is why lefties always get all the commencement addresses, and they love to spout their opinions on award shows because they know there's no journalist there that will ask them a question. And the reason why, and he's the perfect example, none of their opinions are actually real. They are all assigned.
And then came the 2016 election, the plot twist nobody saw coming but everybody remembers. Hillary wasn't just expected to win, she was practically crowned in advance. The media had the confetti ready, Hollywood had the champagne chilled, and Twitter was locked and loaded with history-making hashtags. But the voters? They pulled the plug and flipped the script with a blunt, collective nope. And how did Hillary take it? Not with humility, but with a 5-year pity tour, books, talk shows, lectures, and a laundry list of excuses that range from Russian bots to sexism, Macedonian meme factories to bad Wi-Fi. Maybe even the laws of physics themselves. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld turned the whole saga into a comedy buffet, ripping through every excuse like a kid on free play mode at Chuck E. Cheese. Pure mayhem, endless shots fired, and absolutely no mercy.
In the Democratic Party's pocket since Hillary stopped having sex.
That's like decades.
Yeah. Losing the union endorsement is like P. Diddy running out of baby oil. There's a whole lot of friction ahead. When Teamsters polled their members about the Dems' new candidate, Cackle's McKnee pads.
And of course, no roast of Hillary is complete without the Clinton Foundation taking center stage. A sparkling monument to what exactly? Charity? Transparency? Or just a high-end family business wrapped in the language of goodwill? The donations poured in like a flood, yet the world stayed as messy as ever. Funny how that works. Greg, practically glowing with glee, pounced on the hypocrisy like a kid tearing open a Christmas present labeled scandal. He painted her Wall Street speeches as less bold leadership, and more like a teleprompter lullaby, 6-figure bedtime stories read to billionaires who were probably asleep before the second paragraph. With every punchline, he ripped away the carefully polished image, layer by layer, until all that was left was an onion stuffed with ego, ambition, and irony. And yes, there were tears. Not from Hillary, but from an audience doubled over, crying with laughter.
The alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor that the unclassified Durham report refers to as Foreign Policy Advisor 1. And this woman, look how happy she is. She's like, I got away with everything. I nailed it. And then Obama made me the liaison to NATO. I mean, not Obama, Biden. Like I continue to get employed by these people because all I do is sit around and do the illicit bidding of my Democrat Powerball.
And then came her grand rebrand as the self-anointed champion of truth. Now that's comedy gold. This from the same woman who once claimed she was dead broke, while juggling more properties than a monopoly board. Hillary's relationship with truth is like a vegan at a Texas barbecue. Uncomfortable, contradictory, and completely out of place. Yet she struts around like a beacon of moral clarity, which in politics is about as convincing as being the designated driver at a demolition derby. It sounds noble, but you're still in the wrong arena. Greg's takedown landed like a history lesson wrapped in stand-up comedy, ruthless, sharp, and painfully funny. He reminded everyone that Hillary has been neck-deep in more scandals than a soap opera marathon, except with acting that somehow manages to be worse. Every relatable moment feels rehearsed, tested, and packaged like a focus-grouped product. Knocking back beers at a dive bar staged. Riding the subway staged. Even basic breathing feels like it's still pending committee approval.
One is wild. This
What is
is
it?
Hillary Clinton in like 2008, and Hillary Clinton saying some wild MAGA type shit.
Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If
She's a Republican.
if they've been working and are law abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
You have to wait in line. You have to wait in line. It's
You couldn't believe that.
illusion.
But the knockout blow, the piece de resistance, came when Gutfeld hurled his rhetorical Molotov cocktail at Hillary's uncanny gift for sinking everything she touches. Endorse a candidate? They lose. Push a policy? It crumbles. It's as if she's cursed by the gods of irony. If Hillary endorsed gravity, the laws of physics might just pack up and leave. And yet at Clinton HQ, the strategy never evolves. Deny, deflect, and above all, dodge accountability. It's like watching a magician whose only act is making emails, responsibility, and credibility disappear into thin air. Is it unfair to pin every disaster on her? Maybe. Is it hilarious? Absolutely. Because seeing a career politician from the dial-up era still parade as the fresh face of change is like watching a Dusty Vez tape try to outtrend TikTok. And of course, trailing close behind is the ever-loyal media cheer squad, twisting her misfires into masterpieces, insisting with caffeinated zeal that what she meant was exactly what she said, even when it cratered on impact.
Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate.
Greg didn't even break a sweat. He just rolled out the facts, laced with sarcasm sharp enough to cut deeper than any direct attack. And the kicker? Hillary wasn't even in the room to defend herself. She didn't need to be. The roast was seared so perfectly even Gordon Ramsay would have tipped his hat. Yet, like the inevitable villain in a political sitcom reboot, she always circles back. Probably just in time to drop another memoir titled You Thought I Was Done. Spoiler, she wasn't. So the saga lumbers on because as long as Hillary keeps charging into the spotlight with all the grace of a malfunctioning Roomba, people like Gutfeld will be there, handing her the mic, then torching the stage. And the rest of us? We'll be in the front row, popcorn in hand, watching raw political ambition slam headfirst into zero self-awareness. After all, nothing screams retirement from politics like showing up in every news cycle, haunting the airwaves like a political Furby nobody can shut off. And those endless interviews, they play less like wisdom and more like Monday morning quarterbacking with extra gripes, hindsight, and a thesaurus nobody ever asked for.
I mean that Hillary would have been a good choice either. She was a terrible choice. She's a corrupt politician, one of the most unlikable people that's ever run for office. They were trying to get people to be supporting her just because she's a woman. This is going to be her history. Women, ladies, I stand with her. So there's all these women that have this blind allegiance towards this career politician, completely full of shit. She's been full of shit.
She's been full of it for years, strutting in with a perfectly curated blazer, dropping lines laced with passive-aggressive wisdom, and flashing that grin like she just recalled where the skeletons are buried. Figuratively, probably. The real spectacle, though, is how the crowd nods along as if she's just cracked the code to world peace with a sound bite. She'll say things like, "We need to protect democracy," which coming from her lands less as a call to arms and more like a phishing email wrapped in a TED Talk. It's all theater, staged as if the true tragedy is that democracy betrayed her, not the other way around. Meanwhile, Greg's roast didn't bother with polite jabs. It ripped the whole facade clean off, tossed it into the Hudson, and handed out binoculars so the audience could watch it sink. He dragged every donor scandal, every pay-to-play whisper, and grinned like a man who'd memorized all the fine print. And every time she tried to repackage herself as the wise elder stateswoman, Greg's sarcasm reduced it to rubble, leaving behind nothing but the uneasy laughter of recognition.
Dare she? She puts out this tweet, and it's a picture of her, a much younger Hillary, and the caption on the hat reads, "But her emails." And she writes in her tweet, "Bringing this back in light of recent news. Get a limited edition But Her Emails hat and support Onward Together groups working to strengthen our democracy." The nerve of this woman to have committed federal crimes and to have gotten off because James Comey didn't have the spine to bring it.
Greg reminded America that Hillary is less Jedi Master and more disgruntled corporate HR rep with a Gmail problem. And the audience devoured every second of it because finally someone said out loud what people usually only whisper over turkey at Thanksgiving. The Clinton saga has become a never-ending highlight reel of contradictions. Champion of women unless they accuse her allies, defender of truth unless it's under subpoena, fighter for the people but only if they're pre-approved donors with premium Wi-Fi. And the delicious irony? After decades of rebranding, dodging, and hiding behind polished silence, Hillary still missed the one thing that could have salvaged her image: genuine humility. Greg's roast hit hard because it shoved the mirror she's been dodging right in her face, stripping away the consultant-approved gloss and leaving the raw truth behind, that maybe Hillary isn't the misunderstood savior of democracy she insists she is, but just the loudest voice in the room who refuses to take the hint. Because in the theater of politics, Hillary doesn't just spill the tea. She is the tea bitter, oversteeped, and impossible to ignore. And the best part? We're nowhere near finished sipping.